Live interview, spontaneous. Ringing him right now. It's ridiculous.
Hello?
Hey! So congrats!
Oh, thank you. Oh my god, okay, I'm very happy.
You sound like you're a little out of breath. Did you just like do a lap around your house or something?
I shouted a lot, and then I called both my parents.
Nice. Well, there were actual dollar bills on the line for this one, so
yes.
So I guess it probably felt really good.
Yeah, I mean I don't do it for the money, but $500 in Canadian money is even more dollars. So I mean, after the fact, it feels pretty good.
There was if the first place got $500, Vile, so it's a pretty decent chunk of change. You also got you get a sweet custom hoodie. I don't know how excited you are about the hoodie. And you also get a mouse pad, I think, right?
Yeah, I didn't even go and retrieve my other mouse pad I got for week 6, so I'm gonna have multiple mouse pads to go to go get at Post Canada. But yeah, and yeah, that's also very nice. And I got a hoodie for the Season 1 Invitational as well, so I'm not going to be cold this.
Yeah, so this is actually your second Invitational win, right?
Yeah. Second, well, this season and also like ever. I mean, you never go in a tournament and expect to win it all, right? You of course you hope to do it, and you like your mentality has to be that you're going to win it, but you don't expect to do it, right? So it's very surprising. Also,
yeah,
like, you know, I got very good draws, and like the thing is, you know, if Tobo had won that game 5 against Almost, he would have been the winner, right?
I don't know about that. Maybe. I mean, what's the matchup like for you against Tillier combo?
Oh, I completely gave up this matchup. Like, I wasn't expecting that many, and I was expecting to like them to not exactly get destroyed, but just like not do extremely well. So like if I do well and they don't, then we never face. But yeah, I mean, congrats to Tobo. Like, he's been in the shadow of like yourself, Kamado, and Moosh, right? And
me,
I feel like
I don't know about that.
I mean, in my opinion, people like when they talk about ET, like you're one of the many faces of ET, right? And people like think about you, Kamado, and Moosh, and I feel like Tobo kind of, at least in my mind, goes a bit under the radar. But like to me, he's like in the top 2, maybe the best player on your team. So.
I don't know about the best, but he's definitely very good. The one thing that's kind of hard to pin down for Tobo is he actually does not participate on the team very often, if that makes sense.
Oh.
So like he's kind of an outlier in that way. He does do some stuff with us, but it's not really a lot, if that makes sense. And he doesn't put himself out there very often, so like you don't see him do too much writing. And being like, I'm an ET member, you know. So actually he might seem like he gets less respect, but we all definitely gets less recognition for how good he is. But we definitely know how good he is as far as being on the team goes. That's for sure.
Okay. Oh, I'm not saying that you guys think that he's not as good.
Yeah. He
like,
just doesn't.
In the eyes of the public, I feel like he's like a bit in the shadow. But I mean, he's extremely consistent, right? In like every invitational he's been doing very, very well. So
yeah. So tell me a little bit about your deck, because I'm curious about a couple of choices.
Yeah.
Why the Rip Knife Assassins over maybe some other early unit, or even something like Hailstorm?
Okay. So originally I had Hailstorm in, right? Like I used I don't know if you remember, I finaled week 6 of
oh yeah, I remember. Because I brought the exact same deck as you, except with 4 Bloodcasters instead of 4 Hailstorms.
Oh yeah.
And every game I couldn't get to 6 power, and I just wanted to die.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But yeah, you're right. I added 1 more power actually from this list. So like I agree with you that it was a bit greedy, especially.
Yeah, this deck looks a lot less greedy. You've gone down. You are not playing Kaifus anymore, which is an important thing to take note of. Instead of maximizing on Dark Returns, you're only running 3 of them. and you're playing Feast Caller now, which I don't believe that the list that you'd originally been playing was playing Feast Caller.
No, exactly. And that's actually, weirdly enough, I took... Well, I was greatly inspired by Almost's film. I think he finaled or he top 4'd.
He did very well with it, yeah.
Right after we met in the finals. So I think it was week 7. And I saw Feast Scholar, and I felt like the big takeaway here, and I also haven't talked about, Rip Knife Assassin 2, so I'm just going to talk a bit about Feast Scholar, and then I'm going to come back to Feast Scholar. So I think the biggest takeaway in this meta is that Runehammer is dead, right? And I feel like, because the FGS control decks don't have Runehammers anymore, and Scream just destroys this 2/4 ability that Runehammer offers. So since Runehammer, at least meta-wise, is dead, like, we can afford to play things like Feast Scholar. And I know Bruce Bygott kind of had a similar approach where he played the Sheriff Marley too. So, like, those big Aegis 4/4s, I mean big as in very powerful, are now even better when meta-wise you have spot removal galore as Permafrost, Madness Combust, and stuff like that, and also the FGS, right? So yeah, everything you play that has Aegis needs to be answered with 2 things in general. So, and Runehammer being dead, you're not scared of playing a Feast Scholar against FJS, and it's an okay blocker in general versus aggro too. So that was, I saw that from Almost, and I was like, yeah, I feel like that's probably the way to go going forward. Also for the Rip Knife Assassin, I had Storms in the beginning in my previous version, and we were testing, and I didn't feel like I needed Storm in the Scream matchup, because Permafrost to me is a better answer just because it's way cheaper, and Permafrost and Storm kind of don't go hand in hand versus Scream, because if you Permafrost and then Storm, then they can just Scream it back.
Yeah, you give them some Scream targets at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So I went with Permafrost, remove Storm, and then it's like, okay, so what do I want to have instead? And we tested a lot of Cumbre matchups, especially Cumbre aggro, which didn't turn out to be in this tournament, but I mean, sometimes you hit or miss, right? And my takeaway was that there would be some Cumbre aggro, and I felt hopeless in this matchup, and I really wanted something. So I tested with, pretty much everybody on SPG, and a second blue actually that said I used to have a version that has Rip Knife Assassin instead of Storm, and he said and you could have some some Suffocates, and I was like, yeah, okay, sure. So I kind of tweaked some stuff, and I added the Rip Knife Assassin, and it turns out the reason to me at least that it's good is, first of all, okay, let's say versus FJS, right? FJS can easily deal with Rip Knife Assassin with Torch, maybe Annihilate, since I don't have a whole lot of targets. So it's easily sorry. I'm trying to speak French and English at the same time. So yeah, it's easy to respond to, right? But if they use the Torch right now, they have less answers for your Feast Scholar, for your Champion of Cunning, for stuff like that, right? Which are the real beater in this matchup. So if you play Rip Knife Assassin and they answer with Torch, then your next threat is actually better. And something that was great in the Dr. Pringles matchup, I think it was the top 8. Yeah, I think it was the top 8 match. He actually didn't torch my Rip Knife Assassins because he felt like he needed that torch to answer an Aegis. Yeah. So my Rip Knife Assassin just got in super hard. And it won me multiple games, right? At the last game, I won a game 5. I won because of 2 big Harbingers. Right? So it's like,
so the Warcry is not completely dead in this deck then. So there's actually a decent amount of good hits for your Warcry.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And also, Aegis units when you make them better, they're even better, right?
Yeah, I noticed in one of your last games against Almost, I think it was Almost, you had a 4-3 Genève merchant. It was able to get in there against like a 4 power crunch, or like a 4-4 crunch. So that was a pretty nice thing. So okay, and it's interesting because Almost also went with a few Rip Knife Assassins in his list as well, which I thought was very interesting. Because I mean, if you look at his list, it's very well, tell me about Almost list. What do you think about that deck?
I think it's hitting some like, it's good. It's probably good in the Scream matchup, right? When you play this and they play the classic Scream, like FPS, I mean Haunted Highway, it's probably better, right? Like, you know, everybody that played in this tournament had FJS and Scream in mind, right? So like, it's probably it's good versus like, I think you faced him in the top 8, I believe.
I did, yes, I did face him in the top 8. It was the games were kind of interesting. I haven't gone over them yet, but it felt very hopeless and one-sided, and a lot of it was weird to me because I didn't really understand why it felt that way, considering he has so many 2-ofs, you know. So it was weird. It was weird when he was like drawing both combusts in the game, and or that we had a game that I think I lost, that he drew both of his 2 abducts against me like in the early game, and was able to get a Desert Marshal and a Rizon out of my hand. Like things like that seemed very odd to me, but those decisions that he made with that deck are kind of interesting. And I tried to pick his brain about it, and what he was telling me is that he just didn't want to overload on specific removal cards that he maybe could not use in a matchup, and so he was trying to use these 7 merchants as a way to like put away a couple cards but still have his deck mostly full of good cards. But I don't know about I don't know if I like that strategy or not. It seems like it's kind of weird if you don't draw the right side of your deck. I
completely agree, and I actually, like, you know, to compare this with the strategy I used, I just went the opposite, right? I went 4 ofs, every removal I wanted except feeding time, because 4 feeding time is kind of silly. So like, the goal was that I'm going to draw so much card that I don't care about a dead card in my hand. And I feel like, I mean, Almost does what Almost only does, right? Like, he is the only one that can know exactly what this deck is capable of. Same thing with you with the 4 faction removal deck, right? Like, I mean, it's
easier to grasp. I think my deck when you actually after you've played it some, just because like it seems it definitely at first it seems very unintuitive, and maybe that's the same way with Almost as well. But the power actually usually just ends up working out because you see so many extra cards with the extra crests that you have. But okay, so we can say there are actually quite a few unintuitive decks in the top 16, I think, today.
Oh, absolutely.
And so what was your battle on the way up? I didn't get to see exactly what your bracket was.
In the top 16, I faced Kang Breath, which was Argenport, right? Mid. Yeah, I faced him yesterday, actually.
Did you beat him yesterday?
No, he 2-0'd me.
Ooh, so, okay. So you were a little nervous then.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, he was leading 2-0 in our best of 5.
Oh goodness!
Like yeah. I mean, I won most of my matches 3-2, right? Like, I mean, I might have, like, I came out victorious, right? But still, like, by a razor's edge. Like, you know, it's very weird how that happens. It's like little things, very, very minor details makes it so, like, one player wins or the other one. And I feel like everybody in the top 8 deserve to win. It's just like you have some kind of matchup lottery, and, you know, you have variants and stuff like that. I feel like everybody that makes top 8 is worthy of the first place. So but yeah, versus Kang, I was down 0-2, and I was very frustrated. So I just, like, stopped, took a break, like 30 seconds, and then I went down to it. I won the 3rd game very, very close. Like, it was a very, very close game, and afterwards the 2-1, the 2 other ones were a bit less close. So yeah, I was very happy.
I feel like I could have used that advice again, definitely when I was against Almost, because it started out the same way. I was 0-2 against him, And I was like, this is just absolutely like ridiculous. I just lost a game on the back of Shugo tactic for, you know, I was like, oh my God, there's one of those in the deck. How is this even happening? And then I was like, okay, we got to do it. And I didn't take a break, and I went right into the third game. I did actually win it, but then the last game was just another kind of basically another, that 1-0 Shugo tactic got me again. It was pretty crazy. Yeah. So against FJS, how did you feel like you did? Because Eric was on FJS, right?
Yeah. One of the biggest reasons why I went with this deck is because I felt like the FJS, like I'm gonna make a bold claim, especially since I
it's about to be real bold because they do have Varas, but I understand.
I feel like Feln destroys this matchup, no contest.
Okay, I could see that.
Like in testing, and I mean, I faced Eric. Actually, I faced Eric twice. I won versus him 2-1, and I won versus him 3-2. And it made me reconsider my stance because it was way closer than I expected. But
yeah, it seems like it would be pretty close to me because they do. I don't know how many swords Eric was running. My guess would be a lot of them because Eric really likes sword a lot, and I think that sword is one of the problem cards in the matchup for you, and Vara is also one of the problem cards in the matchup for you, but not really that bad. It's just that she kind of gives the FGS deck a way to freely break Aegis, and then also maybe combine it with a Slay. But you've got enough Aegis units and enough threats. I think that you're probably set up pretty well in that matchup, and they're actually not running that much removal anymore, which is kind of weird to see. But a lot of the FJS lists are just running things like maybe 4 Slay, 2 Vanquish, 2 Annihilate, and that's like 8 spot removal spells, right? And so you may be able to actually beat that many spot removal spells even with the harsh rules. So I think it's pretty close, probably.
Yeah, I mean, coming into the series, I felt like I was very favored. His 2 wins, one of them I was like stuck on 4 blue, 4 shadow with like 2 champion gunnings.
Oh, that's the worst feeling. But you do play Feln, so that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I can't complain about variants. Like, you know, this weekend I really can't complain about variants. I had some very nice draws. But yeah, this game was pretty unfortunate, and the other one. Oh yeah, he went like Icaria into 13/13 Sword of Sky King into a removal spell, so I was like, okay, well.
Gross. Yeah, Icaria is another card that can be tough for Feln, but since it's it got nerfed, you only really see 1 in those decks now, so it's now, I mean, that definitely makes Feln a lot better, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And also, like, a dark returned Champion of Cunning that's unanswered will be able to block a 5/5 Vera. Sorry, 5/5 Icaria, right? So
yeah,
it's like you have the option of not using even 1 removal spell to actually deal with Icaria.
Yeah.
So sometimes it pays off, but yeah.
So I'm sure that you practice a lot against Scream, since your team has probably plenty of good Scream players. I mean, you're Overmaster's on SPG now, right? I think.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I know he used to be on Team Rank Star, but and so I know that you probably got plenty of games against Scream. So, how do you feel like this deck lines up against Scream? Because that's what Dr. Pringles was playing, right?
Yeah. I felt I was very confident in this matchup, and what I'm gonna say, I really don't want to take away anything from Dr. Pringles. He made it super far. He's a great player, but I feel like. Personally, it was my worst played set of the whole tournament. And once again, I mean no disrespect to Dr. Pringles, but I made some some very dumb sequencing errors, like playing a 5-drop, and then like I should have played the banner afterwards and then held up Rinder's Choice, but I played the banner which was depleted, and then I played the unit, and I couldn't. Like, it probably lost me the game. So I made multiple very small mistakes. I was leading 2-0. My first loss, I was super cocky. I was like, you know, like in tennis when you're leading 4D love and you're like going for that big serve, right? On like these, you miss your first serve and then you go on your second serve, but you treat it like it's the first serve and you get like a double fault. That was basically it. Like,
well, I mean, they do say that overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer. So I can definitely understand getting a little overconfident after your first loss and thinking, I can just throw away one game. It's fine.
Yeah, and I mean, you really can't do that.
Yeah, you can't. No.
Yeah. Afterwards, the second game, like I made some sequencing errors, and I played loosely. Like I didn't value my health total as much as I should have been, and I got punished super hard. And yeah, game 5, I got pretty fortunate. But I mean,
so it's really interesting, and you might not be like a Scream expert, but it's really interesting to see the different Scream lists evolve. And it looks like his list actually has a little bit more removal than usual instead of the Devours. So I would think that he'd be able to put up a little bit more of a fight. But sometimes I've seen that with these lists that are running quite a bit, like a little bit more removal, they lose those value cards, and it's actually kind of hard because they really can't win a one-for-one race. They really have to actually kill you and maybe draw a couple extra cards. So it's interesting to see him go away from the Devours and go towards, the fourth Permafrost and the one of Annihilate, which is probably actually as bad as it could be right now. I don't know if Annihilate's ever been worse than it is. It has been.
Yeah, it has some narrow uses, but yeah, I agree. It's not amazing, but it's a lifesaver when you need it.
It is, yeah, but like the mirror match, like Rindra's choice is very important, and I like Moosh's list was actually running 2 main, I think, and I thought that was really interesting, and it gave him a pretty good edge in the mirror. Although he did end up losing to Almost, which I thought was kind of interesting to see that Almost was able to sort of take those well, they're not really mirror matches. That was actually another thing that I had actually warned Toba going into his matches against Almost. The deck is actually very, very different from the normal Haunted Highway Scream deck, and you can't actually approach the matchups the same way, in my opinion. Now, maybe your deck can do it because you've got, giant flying Aegis blockers and lots of Rindra's choices, and, your deck definitely looks like it's well-suited in that matchup. But like Tobo's deck is very vulnerable to something like what Almost is doing. I think he only really has the Titans to kind of try and fight that strategy, and that could be a really tough game. Because he was cleaning up all the other Scream decks, and so it was probably pretty heartbreaking for him to end up losing to Almost deck. But he was thinking it was probably going to be a very similar matchup, and I think they're actually pretty different.
Yeah, it's like, that deck, since it has, Beast Scholar and it has Fanatic, it's like an old school Scream deck where, like, if you want to go
that's what I was telling Almost, is it was like the really old school Feln ones that were just trying to bring back Gorgons over and over again and kill you with them. It looked very similar to that. And Beast Caller, we haven't seen these cards get played in a good while, so it was very interesting. Moosh does comment that he fell down to Almost's God Draw technique, and that is possible. I mean, he definitely ran pretty hot, but I think that a lot of people that got there today probably did the same thing. I mean, I also probably ran pretty hot, that's for sure. So so how much testing did your team do? I'm curious about that. But sorry, go ahead and say what you're gonna say.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna say a pretty obvious thing, but like you can't not run hot in those kind of tournaments and expect to do well, right? Like I mean, skill. Of course, it's a card game. There's variance, and you try to negate that variance, but like it's still there, right? It's not chess. So I mean, if you just draw super poorly, if you flood or screw every game, and I mean, like you might be the best player in the world, but sometimes you just fail to variance. But yeah, it's like we have to accept those rules, or else we shouldn't play a card game.
What's up, Tall Organism? Yeah, that's true. So how much testing did you guys do? Because I heard that there was Bassoon Buffoon said there was basically a very legendary 12-hour testing session where you guys were like all in the voice chat for 12 hours just testing like crazy.
Oh yeah, it was on Thursday. I had the day off, and my girlfriend was also busy pretty much the whole day. So basically the whole week, I think we were in invitational mode like the week before, and we're like kind of testing already and just like thinking about what to bring. And some players were decided very early on what they would bring, and some others were undecided until like 30 minutes before the deadline. So and yeah, we tested, like there were like 5 to 6 players in voice chat for about 12 hours a day every day of the week.
Wow, that is crazy. Of course,
it's like a rotating.
Sure, yeah.
But I mean, there were, and even some of them like weren't in the Invitational. Like, I mean, there were
so you had people not in the Invitational helping you guys test as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, like, that's really nice.
Second Blue was there. Missing Toes was there. Jarbo was also there. Child Roland was there. And I mean, the other
Jarbo, the unsung hero of SPG. People don't even know that he's a member sometimes.
He's such a nice guy. This guy is amazing. Like, yeah. I've never like he was on the team. He's been on the team longer than I have. But like he's so cool. Like, and he's so good. And he brings some very interesting ideas. And like he thinks outside the box. And I feel like that's such a
tall, shark, and handsome.
Like that's holds such value in this game. Like almost right, almost thinks outside the box, and it paid off real hard.
Oh yeah, it's been paying off constantly this season, right? And he even inspired you a little bit with his Felm deck. I actually thought that his Felm deck had some really cool tech in the market too. I thought his Nightmaw in the market was actually really sweet. A little weird, but like it could just flip a Combre match on its head, right? Because all of a sudden you just get in through the Titans and they weren't expecting it at all. So it's kind of an interesting little piece of tech. Almost is definitely one of my my favorite players out there right now, because he's definitely always looking for new tech and looking for different styles on the decks that he plays. But he's kind of similar to Knife Bloom in my mind, where he does really well with his decks, but it's very hard to take his decks and figure out how to play them well, I think.
Yeah, I think he's like a competitively driven Knife
Tony
Bloom,
is the armor guy, yeah.
Right? Like Knife Bloom, I feel like Knife Bloom's decks, I of course, once again, I mean no disrespect. I just feel
I was going to say, you better hold on a second. Knife Bloom has been kicking ass in the Direwolf Digital tournaments. And
oh, he has?
He has, yeah. I think he's been, he's day 2'd at least 2 of them now. And he is almost always in top 100 Masters.
Yeah, okay, fair enough then.
With those crazy brews with you know, playing Sentinel's Might and stuff, which is actually a better card than I expected it to be.
Oh yeah, I felt it that one.
Yeah, I played that Praxis deck for like a whole day, and it was actually pretty good. But it was more like a combo deck, which was very weird because you don't expect to play Praxis midrange like a combo deck. But all of a sudden, you play like 3 Grenadine drones with Overwhelm with 2 horns out, and then you Sentinel's Might and you tank with all your like 56 power units, and it's like, how did that even happen to me? But the deck can do that kind of stuff. So anyway, you were gonna say you feel like almost as a more competitive oriented Knife Bloom. I mean, I think they're both pretty competitive, but
yeah. I meant more like how he builds his decks, right? Because Knife Bloom, you know, I think it's probably multiple people said that, but the first time I've heard it was from Bruce by God. He said basically like Knife Bloom, the first half of the game you're trying to figure out what he's doing, and the second half you're like, holy shit, he did that, and then you lose, right?
Yeah, but that is like, exactly what it's like.
When you face him the second time, though, you know what's coming, right?
Yeah, and I feel like he still manages to whoop me pretty often, but that's but that was when he was playing the Plunderer deck, because it was actually kind of hard for the decks I was playing to counter it. But yeah, I agree. It's once the jig is up, it can be beaten for sure.
Yeah. And like in open deck lists like the ETS is, I feel like this is much more difficult to pull off.
That's
right?
true.
And maybe maybe this is why, like, if the Direwolf going forward, the Direwolf tournaments are still like closed deck list, then like I would very much see Knife Bloom doing super well, right? Because he has that surprise factor that most people don't have, and you know, it's like you never play around those cards that you never see. And like first time he played that that thing that costs 8 and like give +X depending on how much health you gain to your units, it's like I was like, okay, I had to read the card. I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah. Okay, so somebody's asking, what drew you to Armory in the past, and what does the deck need to come back to relevancy?
What drew me to Armory is that I used to play Hearthstone back in the day before I knew this game existed, and I played Control Warrior pretty much nonstop. Like, I only played Control Warrior.
Interview
so I
over.
Really love.
Just end it right now. Control Warrior is so boring. Did you really like Control Warrior?
Oh yes, I love Control Warrior.
Continue. I'll stop interrupting you.
Because I love how I love how relic weapons, or just weapons as it's called in Hearthstone, are designed, and how they work, and like what they do. They ignore so many things that is great about other units. That yeah, I really like this interaction, and I was like, I was starting, and first deck I ever played was Burn Queen. Back when Burn Queen was incredibly OP, it was like the best deck for like 6 months to a year straight, right? And then I watched, like, I think it was Manuez, he was playing Armory back in the day, and I was like, oh shit, this looks like a nice deck. I tried it and I just fell in love, because what I really liked, and this is something that I had kind of an epiphany a bit earlier today, is like, Armory and this version of Fel are very similar in multiple aspects, and I think the biggest aspect is that you are able to play the control deck when you want to, and when you want to be aggressive, you have multiple tools to do so. So like playing the the control deck in the matchup, or playing the aggressive deck in the matchup, it's like you have so many tools to do both, that I really like the fact that, you know, when you know a certain matchup, you know that, oh, I'm the beatdown in this, so oh, I'm going to like not play this, I'm going to do it like this. Like you can have basically two play styles, right? In the and that's what I really liked about Armory. And also, like, back in the day, it was absolutely OP.
It was very good back in the day, yeah, for sure. And I think that you make a good point that one of the things that's always so hard about attacking relic weapons is that they come at you from a different angle, and you're kind of doing a similar thing with almost all of your big threats having Aegis. You're kind of coming at your opponent at a kind of like a, I mean, it's still a very creature-oriented strategy, but at the same time, they, like you said, they have to use multiple cards to get rid of it, similar to a weapon where a lot of weapons you have to 2-for-1 yourself just to get rid of it, that kind of stuff. So I can definitely see this having a similar play pattern to Armory. So what do you think it would take to bring it back into the light?
Okay, I'm going to be a bit defeatist here. I think that Direwolf is dead set on Armory not being a thing anymore. Because we're at set 4 right now, set 4.5. Basically, no good relic weapon has been printed since set 1. Job on Greatsword doesn't count. It's not great. It doesn't fit in Armory. It's
serviceable, and it's only really good because it's in fire. So yeah,
it's a very niche card. Even though it's kind of it's an okay card, I would never play this in Armory. So like they don't print cards that are good in Armory, and they keep on printing cards that are bad for Armory, right? Like, how many relic removal or relic blocks have they printed since since set 3, right? There's Pacifier, there's the thing that looks that 3/5 deadly, that when it filtrates, it removes all the weapons in the deck.
Yeah, I don't even know why that thing exists, but yeah, it's there.
Also, Hunting Scream is a weapon counter just on its own, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So there's like so many things that destroy Armory right now. I feel like they would need to print some broken relic weapons. Like, I really want my favorite card, the card I would really like to see, is something like a weapon that silences, right? Something like a 3-mana 3/1 relic weapon. Summon, silence a unit. So like you have some gain against Scream, you have some gain against Dawnwalkers, which, you know, is insane against Armory and stuff like that. So you have some gains against the thing that are really annoying. So to me, that would be one of the ways. But it's like they're gonna have to print a whole lot of cards, because even Boar, right? Even Market, Red
Markets
itself,
right, Markets themselves have made weapons a lot worse. So
yeah,
it's like the weapon has to be extremely splashy, like Sword of the Sky King or something like that.
Yeah, and like you have a 7/5 Daisho, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna win with Daisho, and then they just like for 4 mana they play a 3/3 and they remove your Daisho, and you're like, okay, well, I mean, it's unfortunate, right?
Yeah, I think the only way that you can really approach Armory now is similar to what Eric did, and he had some success with it, which is you just overload on weapons and things that bring back weapons, and but it's really tough, and you kind of have to get. You have to draw really well, I think, to do well with that deck. I'm not actually sure what Eric's secret is, because you remember the Ricano Armory deck he made with Fist and okay. So, and that deck was pretty good, I think, but it's just I'm not sure that it can actually beat a Scream meta for
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
honest.
I don't see that happening. But yeah, the shell is good, and moving forward, like if there's enough Scream hate in set 5, then maybe this kind of deck can make a resurgence. But like,
That's true. That's true. I
I,
think. What do you think about Haunted Highway? Are you okay with the way the deck is now, or do you feel like people are having to bend over too much to actually beat the deck?
okay, look at the top 4, right? Top 4 is recursion, 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 right? Like I feel like my deck is the least recursion centric deck, and even then, like Dark Return and Champion of Cunning is one of the best way to win. Like right now we have what we had: Haunted Highway, the other Scream, Talier combo, and Felm, right?
Yeah.
4 recursion. I'm gonna say recursion heavy decks. Like the 3 others are way more recursion heavy, but like let's call them all recursion heavy for the sake of the argument. I mean, in my opinion, there needs to be more void hate going forward, right? Because, geez, that's way too insane. Like it's not just the Scream decks; it's just like Talier combo is also extremely broken. And
it is, yeah. I think they're going to fix that one because of there's been a lot of word that they don't like how that deck functions, and I think that honestly Kamato's version really broke something even worse. So it's gonna. I think they're definitely going to look into that.
Oh yeah, I really hope so, because it's just boring to play against, and I really don't like it. But
yeah, I don't like it either. But you're right. Dark Return, I don't think has ever been. That's another card that I don't think has ever been better. Like people are playing them in just about every single mid-range deck that because of how good Shadow is in general right now, and it's making it makes it very hard for a control deck to actually come back into the game, because they always can just get their best threat back. And which, I mean, that makes some other cards really good, like Feeding Time is very good right now, for instance. So I just don't know how they will fix the recursion issues without possibly, like you said, maybe they need more void hate. Maybe the Steward of the Past change was actually a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree that the Dark Return is very strong. But like, if you let's say you nerf Dark Return to a 2-drop, right? You double the cost of Dark Return. What's gonna happen? People are just gonna play Last Chance, right? It's like,
yeah,
Last Chance is kind of nullifying the argument that Dark Return should be nerfed, because they just printed it, right? So I mean, in their mind, it's
it's also a campaign card. I don't think it'll get changed.
Yeah, which I really don't understand that thought process from Dire Wolf, but I mean, it feels like that's what they're doing, right? It's like, if it's from the campaign, then never nerf it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. But what do you think of the metagame, though, in general? Are you okay with it then?
It's fine. Okay. I feel
don't go too deep into it. I'm more like how do you feel about the metagame? Are you like literally are you good with it, or is it kind of bother you?
It's bumming me very hard. Like,
okay.
I was thinking about like not quitting, but just taking an extended break, like in 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, just because, like, oh my god, this is just depressing.
Well, it's a good thing you didn't do that. You won the Invitational, so.
Huh?
I said it's a good thing you didn't do that. You won the Invitational.
yeah. Like, I mean, okay. So what I thought going forward, what I was saying is, like, I talked to my girlfriend about it, and I was like, this is really taking a toll on me. I don't like this, how the game is evolving. I like playing the game a whole lot, and I'm not saying that Dire Wolf is at fault. I'm just saying that how they want the game to be, it doesn't fit to my needs. I'm not saying that my needs should be over anybody, or I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just saying that this is what I feel. And yeah, I was like, I mean, there's Worlds coming up. I'm qualified for Worlds, and so I was like, I'm just like going to grind until Worlds and then see what happens. And I still feel the same way, even though, like, I come off such a big high right now, because, like, I'm super happy about today, but even then, like, I'm not sure I want to do this another year, even if, like, you know, $100,000 is a whole lot, but happiness is worth a lot more.
yeah. Well, have you ever thought about going back to content creation? This was another question I really wanted to ask you, because I know that you used to stream and you haven't done it in a while.
Yeah, I really like streaming. Like every time I stream, I'm like, oh man, I'm having so much fun, and it's very nice. But the thing is, like, at my core, I'm very competitive, and you know, sometimes I come off like a real dick just because I have this like sometimes cocky, but usually just like competitive driven mentality. I like to stir up some shit with some ET players sometimes, right? And
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
Just because I'm, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I'm just a dick. But going back to your point, at my core, I really want to compete. That's my top priority playing this game. And I agree that I would have a whole lot of fun streaming, and maybe like I was thinking about maybe like if I were to do well today, then maybe I could just write like a tournament report or something like that. And
yeah, you should definitely do that.
About doing that, just because like we're gonna have no tournaments in the next 3 weeks or so. So like I'm thinking about it, and it's always very fun, and the community is so nice, and everybody is like, I mean, everybody's super supportive of everybody, and well, I mean in general, and it's like super, like the average Eternal player is so nice that like it's very fun and it's very rewarding. Let's say like for now, my content creation is the podcast, and like every time we release an episode, even sometimes I feel like it's not our best one, like we still receive like some very nice comments, and it's very gratifying. And so
oh yeah,
I really like it, and it's very fun. But my priority playing this game is being competitive, and like I might stream in like, since we have kind of a lull for a couple of weeks, I might go back to streaming. It's just like
now's definitely a good time. You'll probably get a lot of people after this invitational win. There'll be a lot of people excited to see you play and see your thought processes again.
Yeah, I could. It's just yeah.
You should do it. I like watching you stream.
Huh?
I said you should do it. I like watching you stream, so.
Well, good. Same to you. To be honest, like I think one of the main reasons I don't do it is because I get salty very, very, very quickly with this meta. Since going back to your previous question, just like I don't play ladder much anymore, just because like grinding the game right now doesn't feel super rewarding. Like right now, I played one game in the last 2 weeks, and I'm rank 14. Like, to me, that should never happen. But I mean, that's
yeah. So the difference between the top of the masters in the top 100 and the bottom is pretty huge, I think, right? Like once you get into the top 10 or whatever, you've probably had such a long win streak that it's really hard to fall out. Actually, I was in first place multiple times this season, and it took me like straight like 8 loss streaks just to fall out of the top 20. That's how many points I had built up on top of that lead. So it's kind of weird, you know. I don't really know. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of transparency there, and I kind of wish that we had more of an idea as to like how far people were from each other and that kind of thing. And it would be good if there was a little bit of degrading, but I think that oh well. Anyway, so you've definitely qualified in the top 100 of ranked. How about draft?
Oh, I never draft.
Like, you never draft.
Oh no. I tried one season, and I played like 5, let's say about 10 drafts, and I went to diamond, and I stopped because I don't enjoy limited. To me, my favorite part about this game is getting in your opponent's head and knowing what they're gonna do and countering it. And in a format that is, I'm speaking as someone who rarely drafts, right? So I mean, there's multiple counter arguments to what I'm gonna say, but this is my stance right now, is that I feel like there's so many things to play around that you end up having to play around some stuff and not some others, and then you get punished and stuff like that. I really dislike this kind of thing so it's not my cup of tea. But I mean, I could just like grind and get better at it. That's
reading is definitely a very big skill in limited. It's still somewhat of a skill in ranked, but it's a lot easier to tell, oh, that's a torch, oh, that's an annihilator, whatever, right? Because your opponent, or maybe your opponent didn't have any pauses and they're playing a justice deck, but then they play that 5th power and all of a sudden they've got a pause. Well, obviously that's a tactic of some sort. But in limited, it's like, okay, my opponent had a pause on one and they're playing Justice. That could be a Finest Hour. That could be a Sharpened Reflexes. And you're right. There's definitely a there's a skill to pause reading in limited that it takes a while to definitely acquire that. So I can understand it being kind of frustrating at first. But you like building decks, right? Because that's what limited is really about, is building something new and fresh each time and taking it into an arena with other people doing the same thing.
Yeah, I'm actually very bad at deck building.
I did not know that. Okay.
I'm a tuner. That's it. Like I rarely come up with a new idea. I usually go with someone else's version and I try to, at least in my mind, make it better.
Okay.
So like building a deck from the ground up, it's not a skill I have.
All right, well, that's interesting. That also explains why you might not like limited as well then, because a lot of it is about building a good deck, you know, about having the right amount of power, having the right, drafting the right synergies, you know, that kind of stuff. So I can definitely understand why you might not like limited. So you're not even worried about trying to qualify for Worlds in that way then?
No, it's going to be one less avenue, but to be honest, like, if they do a limited portion, a limited tournament, like even if I qualify, I'm not gonna be good. Like I will have no confidence.
So do you just not want to play in tournaments that you think you might lose?
I don't play in tournaments / formats that I don't feel like I can give a good performance.
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
For example, in as I said, I'm not a deck builder, I'm a deck tuner, right? In beginnings of new expansions, I rarely do well. I usually do well in established formats. When the meta is kind of settled, or like when you know what you're gonna see, and you try to tackle these decks that you know are gonna be here no matter what. This is, in my opinion, where I excel.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely got that from what you said, so that makes a lot of sense. So Fatsuno's wondering, what does the testing process look like for Eternal teams, and how do you determine what decks to focus on or against? I'm going to guess that you probably don't want to go too deep into how SBG prepares for a tournament, because you probably don't want to give away too many secrets, right? But how I can guess how you guys determined which decks to focus on. You basically were saying that Scream and FJS were your two biggest fears, right?
Yep. I mean, yeah. I think that's the basis of any practice or anything. It's like sometimes there's a bit of, you know, trying to predict something, right? When we don't have an established meta, trying to predict what's going to be good is much harder than right now, where we just had a very established meta. So where it's much easier. Like I'm pretty sure if you asked all the 32 players here what were going to be the two most popular decks, they would probably all say something like Scream and FJS, or at least they would have at least Scream as, you know, one of the expected most popular decks. So I think in this week's preparation, we didn't spend a whole lot of time thinking about what was going to be good. I think we know, like, I'm going to call them tiers. Not it's not like in a tier list, right? I'm just saying, like, in terms of what we expect to be the first thing that's going to be mostly played, and afterwards tier 2 could be something like the counters to these, and tier 3 could be things you never play because they crash.
Yeah, and I think the concept is usually represented as levels, where there's like a level 1 deck, which is probably the best deck in the format, a level 2 deck, which is the deck that attacks basically the best deck in the format, and then a level 3 deck, which attacks the level 2 deck, which usually also loses to the level 1 deck. So you'd never want to play the level 3 deck, for instance, because it doesn't make any sense to only attack the level 2 deck, even if you expect the level 1 deck to not be as popular as it is. And it doesn't make a ton of sense to play the level 2 deck if you're worried about the level 3 deck being extremely popular. But at the same time, attacking the most popular deck can also be a pretty good strategy. So the level 2 deck could be the correct deck to play. And I don't remember the end of this theory. I don't remember exactly what deck you're supposed to play. Most people feel like the level 1 deck is usually the best deck to play, especially if it's hard to attack like Scream is.
Yeah, I agree. To me, I've always liked going to the second tier, just because I don't know, for some reason I've never excelled at playing tier 1 decks, except like I won the other Invitational by playing Argent Port Mid, which was by far the best deck in the format back in the day. I think it was kind of an outlier, even though it was funny because it was my greatest achievement was playing a tier 1 deck when I'm usually more comfortable playing a tier 2 deck. But
Argent Port mid range had a similar strategy to Armory, so you were probably really comfortable with that deck.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And players like Moosh and Kamado, there's like a magic terminology. I think it's Spike. Like they're gonna play the best thing no matter what. I think that's. I don't know exactly. Anyway,
Moosh is definitely somebody who would play the best deck in the format 100%, unless something more broken showed up, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Kamado is more likely to play a level 2 deck in my mind, even though it might not always be the best choice, especially if he's not a big fan of the top tier deck, and he also feels like his deck can attack other decks in the format as well. So like he brought Tillier combo because he felt like it was really, really broken. And we definitely had some good results in the top end of Masters with it for sure. And it definitely felt really good. But Moosh really preferred the Scream deck because he's had a lot of experience with it, and that's how he feels like it's definitely the best deck in the format. So
yeah, I agree. And I feel like Moosh is such a skill player that him playing the best deck probably net the best results, because when you play tier 2 deck, you can just like mind game yourself and just like get outplayed by the actual outcome. Like if everybody goes on tier 2 decks, then you kind of get owned because you're expecting to play versus tier 1 decks, and then but when you play tier 1 deck, like you have on average a very, very well-tuned deck that can win pretty much against anybody. And yeah, I mean,
especially since like our testing, Scream was just very hard to actually fight against, and that's why my deck spawned. Basically, I've been working on it for a few days before the Invitational, and I'd been looking at a Fire Time Shadow deck that had a similar basis to it, but I basically wanted a deck that was kind of like FJS, but didn't fold as, I think, hard as FJS does to Scream, because I know that FJS can beat Scream because Cranky did beat 2 really good Scream players in the reunion tournament. But if you build your deck a little bit differently as a Scream player, or you play a little bit better, the FJS matchup is actually not that hard, I think. And so that's why I built mine to try to attack the mirror and also the Scream decks at the same time. And so I kind of went with a level 2 deck myself, and it kind of looks like you did too a little bit. You also seem to attack the top 2 strategies, especially with your removal choices. And I can kind of understand that. And also I felt more comfortable playing one of the level 2 decks rather than trying to play Scream myself, because I kept losing every Scream mirror match I played on ladder, and I was like, if I can't beat the mirror match, then I really am not going to be able to do well in the tournament,
Yep, completely agree.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. So you're thinking about getting back into streaming, perhaps, and and that sounds really great to me. I hope you do that for sure, because I think that you actually have a huge audience that's just waiting to see you at the showdown, as it was. So I think that.
It's so funny that I'm getting the attribution for that when I absolutely did nothing for that quote to be.
I know. I guess I should make this clear. Tony that was actually Missing Toes' quote, not Tony's quote. And Missing Toes would like the credit, but you are the face of SPG, so I mean, you kind of have to take. I think you basically are. Yeah, I mean, I guess Bassoon Buffoon could also be the face of SPG, but you're like. You're like that secondary face. You're the face everybody loves, and you have better hair, so.
Well, I mean, thank you. I mean, I hope you guys aren't taking super seriously everything that I do or say, because I sometimes I'm too cocky / goofy for my own good.
You're fine.
So
I think
like
there's a lot
that
of there can definitely be some bad blood between teams, but I think that probably happens in most sports, and I can kind of understand. I can kind of understand it. Like, it just, stuff happens. It's not really. I don't think anybody's taking it too seriously.
Yeah, it's just, but yeah. I'm thinking. I'm always thinking about how great streaming is and how fun it is. So like it's always in the back of my mind. And yeah, I think in timeline wise, I have like a couple of weeks that I can, like, at least 1 or 2 weeks I can take pretty chill, and afterwards it's back to the drawing board. Especially if we have a whole new set coming right before Worlds, that would be not my cup of tea.
Well, I hope they do that, but I think that they might not. We'll see what happens. Well, I guess you're talking about the ETS Worlds, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When is that going to be? Do you know?
I think it's 4 days. The first day is December. Wait, okay, so that's like 8th and 9th of December, and afterwards the 15th and the 16th of December. I think are the 2 weekends, the 2 Worlds weekends.
Okay. All right. And okay, so let me see. So people can find you if they want to on Twitter. Oh, sorry. And you have a lot of E's in your Twitter handle. Many more than usual, I would say. So that's pretty interesting. And then what's the name of your podcast?
It's the Seek Power podcast. You can SoundCloud and iTunes and somewhere else. I think SoundCloud is the easiest way to get it. It's yes.
Do you guys post it on your website?
I don't have. We used to, but it was. Okay, so like there's 2 tiers of admins. Paradox and I are like eternal admins, and then there's like Haidar, Tripped Out Fish, and I always forget one. Geez, Tripped Out Fish and Drolly Check are the 3 SPG admins right there. They have like they take care of the website. They take care of everything SPG in general, right? So let's say there's, I don't know, another Hearthstone team or something, then they would be the ones in charge. They have access to like the website and stuff like that, and I don't. I know Paradox does a bit, but like it was kind of hard to host the podcast on our website for some reason. I'm not too sure. That's not my part of the deal, but we have some episodes on it. But I feel like the best way to go and give it a listen is on SoundCloud.
Okay, and I am mistaken. You are usually 5Es. My bad. I see that you're also 5Es on Twitch as well. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, this has been a pretty awesome interview. Thanks for doing this little impromptu thing with me.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, of course, and really good job winning. You know that you were definitely one of my favorites. I got super excited when we both made day 2 at basically the same time. So I was like, really like, hell yeah, I'll see you at the showdown. But we didn't get to see each other, unfortunately. All right, one last question before you go. Who do you think would have won between me and you if we'd met in the finals?
Let me take a look at your deck.
Okay.
You have time for Varus Choice, Banish, and
Desert Marshal.
Desert Marshal, yeah.
And
so you have multiple silences.
This is TonyGeeeee.
Sorry, go ahead. What?
Oh no, somebody asked who this was, and I was telling them this is TonyGeeeee on the line.
Okay. I usually like my chances against FJS, but your time cards, except for Banish, are very, very strong in this matchup. So I actually have no idea. I think it would be very, very.
I think you would have taken it. I think looking at your list, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday as well on my stream, looking at your list, because of how blank Banish is against you, I feel like I would probably just get run over, because like, there's almost no hits. I could kill a Rip Knife Assassin or a Merchant with it after an Aegis is gone, but after that, those cards are basically dead in the water. And you actually have a lot of removal from my threats, so I basically can only kill you with a sword. Like, you're probably going to be able to kill Rizon. You're probably going to be able to kill my Varas. You'll probably be able to kill my Maidens, and then what am I left with, you know? So it's like, I think it would actually be a really hard matchup for me. And when I was looking at the brackets, I was thinking, man, I think I can beat every deck in this bracket except for the finals if TonyGeeeee or Bruised by God makes it. And then and then you made it, which is funny because I was definitely expecting to meet you in the finals, but that's all right.
Well, I mean, you're just gonna have to qualify for Worlds, and we're gonna face.
Yeah, now I have to play in the wild card, so that's gonna be pretty crazy. All right, man. Thank you again for hanging out with me, and I'll talk to you later.
Well, thank you so much. Have a